Hello, everyone, and welcome to Connecting Voices. My guest today is Dr. Jihad Azrour. Dr. Jihad Azrour is the former Minister of Finance in Lebanon and the current Managing Director of Aventis. Hello, Dr. Azrour, and welcome to Connecting Voices.
Thank you.
Well, it's great to have you here. And actually, I would like to ask you about your experience with the Ministry of Finance in Lebanon. So you started in 1999 and you were the project director for reforms in the Ministry of Finance. How was that experience?
Well, it was a great one. I was before working in the private sector in management consultancy in a company called McKinsey, and therefore moving to the reform, especially in a country like Lebanon with a lot of issues to deal with post-war, it was A, very challenging, and B, also rewarding, because whatever you do as improvement, you will see it immediately. I had the chance to have a team that was, very highly professional. Most of them were Lebanese, and all of them were dedicated to the mission we had, and it helps a lot. The team you have makes big difference.
And this experience working with the Ministry of Finance as a managing director, you dealt with a number of donors and international organizations. How did we make your life difficult? So how was the experience from the World Bank and the IMF and the EU and other international organizations working with you in this?
In fact, if you are well prepared and you know how to work the comparative advantage of each institution, in fact, it makes your life easier.
Okay.
In preparing well the projects and the reforms, and B, in helping you communicating the importance of those reforms to various stakeholders.
Okay.
Whenever you introduce reform, you need to have advocates. And those organizations could be the right advocates, especially because they are, well respected and also speak with authority. And usually, when you build this positive relationship, it works for you. It's not easy to manage more than one mission, because usually they tax on your resources. They tend to utilize a lot of your human resources. However, I think for a country like Lebanon, we were lucky to have the right interlocutors, both the World Bank, IMF, EU, and other organizations. From time to time, it doesn't work as you want. But most of the time, especially, it doesn't work as you want because sometimes it takes more time than you have. And in public sector, you don't have a lot of window of opportunities. And sometimes when you have it open, you need to hit it immediately. And sometimes bureaucratic processes don't get you the right people at the right time. But I think it's important to build the network internally with those organizations, deliver, and provide the right information and reporting. When you have all these ingredients, usually it works well.
Great. In 2005, you became Minister of Finance. So it's a new chapter with Minister of Finance in Lebanon. And at the time, this was a very interesting time in Lebanon. There were, different contexts in terms of political economy, in terms of challenges, and yet you moved forward with a very ambitious reform plan. Didn't you think about delaying the reform plan, because of the environment, or you thought this was a good time to push for reform in Lebanon?
Well, we had 3 years that were full of events, political challenging events, security issues with 2006 war. We had the increase in oil price, we had the increase in commodity prices, we had the beginning of the international financial crisis. Therefore, we had it all. I think at the time we decided to take actions and to say, well, timing is not always something that you can control, but what you can sure do is you can try. And what we did, in fact, we launched a series of important reforms. And I think what was important element is to start from the previous minister's end and not to reinvent the wheel. It helped me a lot. Knowing the Ministry of Finance and knowing also what was in the pipeline helped me a lot to activate certain number of reforms. The fact that I had a good network of experts in different organizations that I had worked with also was very useful. And at the time, we established what we called the core group for Lebanon that helped us prepare the international conference that took place in 2007, helped Lebanon raise $7.6 billion, which is almost 1/3 of GDP. We worked with various institutions in improving, for example, the reporting on donors. We coordinated the work of donors with the support of the World Bank and other organizations. Therefore, it was for me or not to do anything, which is okay, easy to do. But the other option was, in fact, to, instead of waiting, move ahead of reforms and try to do the maximum. What can be achieved will be, and what cannot be achieved will be at least ready for the next minister to implement.
Yeah, what's beautiful about this story, and when sometimes you look at what's happening in MENA right now, Middle East and North Africa, with the instability in some countries, there is the reluctance to move with reform. So seeing your story from Lebanon, and yet you managed to succeed, is, I think, a best case scenario that you can share with other people. And so that's why I think it's an excellent story to share with others.
But even you can be rewarded. For example, in 2007, it was a very difficult year. We were rewarded by the UN,
Yes.
the best prize for public sector reform,
Okay.
and this is because of the work that has been done throughout the years, and also because of the commitment that we showed at the time. Therefore, yes, you when you are in public office, you don't control events, but at least you can control your agenda, and it's very important to keep a certain time in your schedule for the reform agenda. Otherwise, you will be dealing with the day-to-day issues, and then you end up, in fact, managing, not leading.
I see. Excellent point. Actually, for my next question, I have to read a quotation that I read that you said at one point, and I have to say it's one of my favorite quotations that I heard from a Minister of Finance recently. So let me read that. If you don't have an internal drive, accountability is very good drive, because when you commit to something and people are evaluating you by what you have achieved, it is a very good drive. It's a drive that applies for ministers, for prime ministers, for directors, and for civil servants. So, as a Minister of Finance, we're talking about accountability. You would deal with the Parliament, you would deal with Supreme Audit institutions. How was the relationship with those accountability institutions?
I still believe in this because I think you have to have a drive, and even if you have it, when you have the right push, it helps because it keeps you focused.
Correct.
The issue is, in our part of the world, dealing with Parliament is not always easy. It's simple maybe, but it's not easy. It's simple because the Parliament is not as demanding in terms of accountability as we see in other parts of the world, but it's difficult because you need to keep the attention of the MPs. And in fact, the best way to do it is to engage them early on, to spend a lot of time with them, especially that our parliaments lack resources to help MPs be prepared and have enough information to decide on policy to go on with, or a reform to implement, or a law to be drafted. And therefore, as much as you provide them with information, yes, you will become, in fact, subject to their criticism, but at least you engage them. With the audit courts and things of the like, I think the regions still have a long way to go. We need to shift the mentality, and I think this is the main challenge. It's a cultural challenge. It's about creating smart control system that is not systematic, but it is more risk related, and plus not only to control the process, but the objective, the outcome. And this, in fact, would help ministries of finance to modernize the public finance management, because you need to provide them information about how productive you were, did you achieve the results, and then to achieve the results you need to set KPIs, and to set KPIs you need to establish objectives, and therefore it helps you make all your planning exercise meaningful, because otherwise it's easy to come up with a plan or with a strategy. If you don't have the indicators that show if you succeeded or failed and how to correct, you stop the loop, and the process will end there. And this is why we see a lot of ministers or officials restarting strategies, but none of them, in fact, showing us if we moved along the way, where we failed, where we succeeded, and how to do it better next time. So this is why it's very important to, in any strategy that you build, set with it the performance indicators and set a mechanism for evaluation and monitoring.
Great. So it's more also shifting from the police mentality, for example, so
Yes.
clean audit institutions to more into being more of a trusted advisor to the Minister of Finance.
Trusted advisor, censor, but it has to strengthen their knowledge base, to shift from transaction to policies, and to be the one who, in fact, has the possibility to look 360 and look at all the issues at the same time and find out where the risks are and point on them and, in fact, ask both the legislative as well as also the executive to address them.
My last question in relation to the inter-Arab coordination in the areas of, for example, public financial management. In the bank, we promote South-South. In the region, we're hoping to promote MENA-MENA coordination and exchange of knowledge. In your experience, how do you see this in MENA? Is this something that you see happening often, or it requires more work to increase this level of coordination between various countries in the region?
Well, if I compare to the past, yes, we're doing more.
Okay.
And I think the work you're doing with the exchange is very good.
Okay.
If we look at what others are doing, we're still lagging behind. If I compare to OECD countries or maybe to other parts of the world, I think we need to do more. Doing more means that putting people together who have the same issues and share the same background. Try to figure out, what are the solutions that work next door. And also, this is the best way to create, in fact, cooperation between those countries. When two Director General work with each other, whenever there is a law that is to be implemented in both countries to promote trade, the two DGs will speak to each other. Whenever they have a similar problem, they can share the same experience. This will put you in more difficult positions because they come back to you and ask you for more.
Yeah.
But I think this is very useful. And also, this will help those who are doing things to showcase. And by showcasing, it will give them even more incentive to do the next generation of reforms. We need to do, I think, still more. And I think, therefore, we need to institutionalize this and to create a framework for that. And this framework can be done by initiatives like yours, but also the region has to take some ownership or some more ownership and reform some of its regional institutions to at least cater for initiatives like yours to last over time and to become an institutional part of their public work.
Azim. Thank you so much, Dr.
Thanks.
Jihad, and thank you so much for giving us the time, and thank you, everyone.